Hello, stellar people, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Trey, and today we'll be continuing our month-long inking practice with the characters of Heaven Between Hell, the HBH Project. Previously, we started with Dog, our lead and hero. Last week, we continued with Fatal, the detective. And this week, we'll be doing Kerberos, the cyborg. Now for practice and to keep it interesting for myself, I usually do things slightly differently each time. So for Dog, I just did straight with a brush pen, while for Fatal, I did a brush pen with some ink wash and spot black inks and some correction fluid for the hair. So the challenge for Kerberos is to use just pens. So I have a line of microns from 01, 03, 05, 08, 10, and 12 to do all of Kerberos. And let's see how this goes. Now, usually I start from a light sketch or a more refined or defined sketch, which is preferable to keep out mistakes. Now, off camera, I usually use a light table, but for this on-camera demonstration, I have copied it to my Strathmore rough paper. And so let's get to inking. Now this one could be a very interesting test for myself because with a brush pen, a regular brush, or a dip ink nib pen, is that you control the size of the inks that gets onto the paper with your pressure, the pressure of your hand. You can press harder for more ink to be applied to the paper and less for that delicate light touch. But for pens, there are different sizes and you can go over the same line over and over again for thickness, or you can use inherently thicker pens for that thickness. So it's now on me to figure out exactly how to do that, which shouldn't be too bad. And pens dry relatively quicker than dip ink. So that's something that's going for it. But this is just an experiment to see what happens. What's the different look? I just want to see what happens, pretty much. So that's why this is interesting for myself. And we'll see how this exactly turns out. Now, I haven't been doing inks for a lot of years, but I've done it enough that I have a particular routine. And so usually I do lighter lines for the top of objects and thicker, bolder lines for under things, under noses, under chins, that type of thing. Now, part of the reason I wanted to do Kerberos in this way with just pens is to show that the difference between human beings and non-human beings. So Kerberos is a cyborg. So he's a metal exterior with a human brain. But how would I show that difference? And I just thought it was like an interesting thing to try. That non-man-made or not non-humanoid creatures, robots, androids, cyborgs, all would have a look to them that human beings would have live lines with brushes and inks. Well, just a difference. But once the lines are done, then I start finessing the lines. And that is to say that I embolden some, I add more lines, but mostly it's I'm working on line weights to make thicker lines, to give things shadow and dimension and a sense of groundedness. And I use different various sizes of brushes to achieve all the detail work and line weights. The detailing phase can also be a relatively long phase because there are so many details or so much stuff that can go into making a character feel alive, real, believable, all of that. And I have a pretty simplistic style. I came from animation and I like that simplification. But there's like, dirt, grime, grit, little cables, wires, undersides of things, hairs, pores, all of that, coloration, if it's colored, whole value systems and all of that can go into art that can make it really, really time consuming. It's also one of the more fun parts because you have the basics and it looks more or less like the thing that you're trying to accomplish and you're just adding on top of, or it's a building, you're just adding more and more things to make it feel alive. So it's really fun. It's just it takes some time. Of course, with the noodling and doodling with artists, it's always a question needs to be asked of when is something done? When can you call it done? Because you can add to it pretty much infinitely if you have the patience for it. So I usually try to sit with something, let it go, and then come back and then work on it some more. But at a certain point, you got to go, okay, you're just noodling and doodling for the heck of it. And it's time to move on. But it's always an interesting question to ask yourself, when is something done? But there are a lot of questions an artist has to ask themselves in the making of art and whatever they're making. And at a certain point, you just go, I think it's good. I think it's done. This one was really interesting for trying out all of the microns that I have in my toolkit. And this is the final of Kerberos, the cyborg. It's not bad. As an experiment, I rather like it. I'm not sure if I'd try this again. I'm pretty sure I would. Or if I try it with brushes to see what that look like. But here we have Kerberos, the sketch, and the final. And here we have him in the lineup. And only one more to go, and that is Hyde. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you next week. Take care, keep shining. Bye-bye.